Hello, hello. Welcome to the Mother Days podcast. I am your host, Sarah Wright Olsen.
And I'm Teresa Palmer. I'm excited for this episode. I really need it. Woo,
Do you know
woo.
who's going to be really excited for this episode is my husband, Eric, because we talk about this every day at the dinner table pretty much.
Wow.
This topic, which I'm so excited to discuss. Everybody, we have the amazing Myka Meier with us. She is a modern day etiquette expert. She has the show, The Mini Manner Show. If you don't know it, you have to check it out. It's a YouTube show. Ocean is also helping me introduce Myka. Myka, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That's the best intro. Thank you, Ocean.
Into this because I feel like there's a real movement towards like not forcing your kids to say please and thank you, and especially in the conscious parenting, like Crunchyroll. When I first started coming in, I was practicing this form of parenting with my stepson called Wright parenting, like Janet Lansbury, that kind of world. And I remember being corrected at the time because I was doing classes to be able to connect with my stepson, and I was not a biological mother at that time. And I was learning to be a stepmom. I was in my mid-20s, and I was like, oh, I'm not meant to tell him to say thank you or please. And I remember feeling so weird about it because I grew up always, it was kind of that era where it's like respect your elders, please and thank you, make sure you are showing gratitude, thank you so much for having me. And I have to say, like, some of that old school stuff has definitely filtered down into my parenting because my kids do have really lovely manners and it means something to me. And I wanted to find out, like, what is this idea of like modern manners and how do you approach it?
Okay. Well, I think there's so many different, every family is different, but I think modern manners is just simply about kindness and respect. And my approach is just thinking about it in a way of compassion and empathy and teaching children, how would that make you feel? And, how do you think they felt? And every single lesson that I like to teach and I like to, help families teach is all about kindness and respect. What is respectful to you? What is the respectful thing to do to another person? What's the kind thing to do? And would it be kind to say please if you wanted something new? Yes, amazing. And then, giving that as a constructive. So that's my whole take on manners. And I think generationally, I grew up very similar to you, where it was, you were told you had to say that, but we didn't really know the why.
What do you say?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But we didn't really know why. So what my whole thing is teaching the why. And it's all about compassion and empathy. And when you think of it like that, it makes it so easy for children to understand. And who doesn't want a kind, friend or a kind or respectful child?
Yes. Oh my gosh. That makes sense. Because you're right. We weren't told why. We were just like robotically. And then you get all awkward at the end of like a sleepover where you're like, thank you, Mrs. Whoever, for having me sleep over. I remember being a kid and being like, oh, I've got to say that at the end.
Yeah. And your mother was like standing in the doorway making sure you said it,
Yeah, I remember, and like beaming with pride, like when I said it. It's so funny because I do feel very proud of my children because I do get the reflection from other parents like, wow, they really are so kind and thoughtful. And if it's rooted in kindness, which I hope for my kids it is, they naturally talk to adults and want to like really engage with older people as well as their little friends. I know that that's the feedback we get when, I pick up my kids from sleepovers. But I haven't shoved it down anyone's throats. I'm always just like, let's just be grateful. Let's just be thankful. Let's like be kind. And I guess that's the way that you approach things, is like, it's rooting it in the kindness and the understanding of like, oh, this makes people feel seen, and it makes people feel like really happy to hear, oh, thank you so much, because you feel appreciated.
It's that you just hit the nail. And I feel like it's not about gentle or being strict. It's balance, right? It's balance.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
And we call it, with mini manners, we call that guardrail parenting is what we call it. So it's almost like, think about a bowling alley, right? Think about, and like when you're learning, you get gutter balls, it's gutter. And that's frustrating. And children actually, I think they want a little help. They want guidance. I think they look for that. And it's example language when I'm teaching my own children and teaching other children. It's I might say, I'll listen when you speak kindly, or you're allowed to be upset, but you're not allowed to be unkind.
Oh, I love that.
And these are just phrases that I use. And I've got a 3-year-old, and just like any other mother, people are always like, you must have the most polite children. I've got an 8-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy. And I'm like, I have a 3-year-old boy, like everyone else on the planet has a 3-year-old boy.
Yes.
And so I'm working through the same things, but just language like that, where they're guardrails, you're still giving structure, but you're not allowing them to be disrespectful or unkind. Those are the two kind of guidelines of my household.
We started at a new school, and there's something so refreshing at the school, which I think you would appreciate, but there's a superintendent who talks about how it's really important to like make eye contact and say good morning when you see someone. And, this is a person you see every single day. So like head down, walking past a person is not a super kind way to greet someone if they're saying hi to you. But when you get out of the car and you see them and you're like, good morning, Mr. So-and-so, and they're like, good morning, how are you? And making eye contact so they like really see you. And I was like, oh, I love that, because I don't feel like that's something that is so, I don't know, it's so prevalent here in this day and age, as where when we were kids, it was like, make eye contact, or like it was in a different way, it was definitely taught in a different way. And we try to tell our kids, like, you guys go ahead and order your own food, what you want at a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
But make eye contact with the waiter so that they know that you're speaking to them, because, your voice sometimes is a little quieter, so they want to be able to hear you, right? So, and then we'll have our now 5-year-old, and she makes eye contact and she's like, I'll have a lettuce wrapped cheeseburger,
Aww.
And, but anyway, so I love that. And I love the way that you explain it, how it's, kindness, and it makes people really feel, when you say thank you to a chef, when you've left a restaurant, you're like, thank you, chef, or thank you to the waiter.
That was delicious.
Makes them feel seen and like really acknowledged, and it makes your child humanize and appreciate like who it was that made that food, right? When you're at a restaurant or whatever it is. So yeah, I love that. That's great.
I think that's the point. It's making someone feel seen. And if a child ever doesn't understand why, the why, I always ask questions. That's my go-to to teach a lesson, is to ask the question. And so without telling, this is why we do that, I say, well, how do you think that would make them feel if we would go up and say something so nice about what they cooked tonight? How do you think that would make them feel? And let them answer that and say, I think they would feel nice. You say, I agree with you. I think you're exactly right. And then giving that encouragement. And really, you at home, like you as a family, they're watching you. You could send your children to all the etiquette experts in the world, but the majority of what they pick up is at home. So they are mirroring a lot. And so I always say, people say, well, how early is too early? And when can I start? And I'm like, actually, it's never too early, because they're already picking up those tiny little things from you right away.
What is your way of like a reminder if someone doesn't say please and thank you? I have been the one who's like, okay, what do you say? But how do you sort of put that in there without it being like
shameful?
Or shameful.
I think, you can say something like, let's say, somebody gives them something, and you could say it first and say, if they are not saying it, you can say, this was so kind. I am just I can't believe this beautiful gift. What do you think? And let the child say, this is really nice. And then you could even say, thank you so much. Right, Max? And Max would say, thank you. So you're even like little ways like that, instead of saying, Max, what do you say? You could try that
to help prompt.
to
Yes,
prompt.
great.
And I think they really do start picking it up. And sometimes, I always say children are learning. And recently I had a client that was like, we were in a grocery store and my child pointed out something that was different about the other person. And that person was angry and upset and hurt. And in that moment, she said, what should I have said? Should I have said, don't say that? That's rude. Don't. And my thought process there was, I recommended, I said, well, in this moment, you can say, I'm really sorry that we hurt your feelings. We're still learning in our family.
Oh, that's nice.
And we're doing our best, and we're still learning, aren't we? And then, it kind of just explain that. But I think sometimes you have to apologize. If you're at a restaurant and someone's thrown a milkshake over the shoulder onto the person next to you, sometimes you do have to apologize on behalf of a child. And they see that too. So it's a team effort. It's a team effort, and they'll pick up on it. And sometimes they just don't know. And so it's a team effort.
And speaking of restaurants, I feel like something that I didn't used to do when I was a kid that I now do. And maybe because like I worked at Hungry Jack's, which is Burger King. I worked at Burger King when I was 15. And the amount of like people that would come in and sort of trash the place and leave crap all over the ground. And like I was the one that would mop at the end of the night. And maybe it comes from that experience. But I'm always really conscious of the privilege to be able to take my large family to a restaurant and spend money having someone else cook for us and having someone else clean up after us. I'm so conscious of that. And I grew up in government housing with my mum. We very rarely went out for a nice dinner, right? My children now know that I have a real belief in really like picking up our stuff and putting our knives and forks together and stacking plates and grabbing our little, what the kids do. My kids will get like a napkin, rip them into little pieces, dip them in water and like do random stuff. And there's just crap everywhere. We know that at the end of a meal, we all clean up to make it as easy for the waiter to come over. If there's anything that we've put on the floor or kicked over, we clean it up. And that's just something that I've taught them because I experienced being on the receiving end of the people who just couldn't care less about like the sort of work they were creating, the trash they were throwing around.
And that's so you're showing respect, you're teaching respect. That's exactly what that is, which is a beautiful way to do it. And another with kind of restaurants or people that any person in a service role, it could be the garbage man who helps you every week. It could be a server at a restaurant. It could be anyone in a service role. You could say to teach a child, you could say, wow, this is really so special that we have this. And also if somebody's ever disrespectful outside, I never want to correct them. I don't want to ever embarrass, but
That's
sometimes
right.
saying, that's someone's mommy, that's someone's puppy, that's somebody's brother or sister. And how do you think that, and humanizing people. It's not just somebody who serves
Absolutely.
you. It's somebody who works really hard and goes home and takes care of their family. So humanizing
that.
people is really important, I think, especially for children.
Yeah, I love that.
I wanted to ask you about table manners. Sitting at the table with a fork in your hand and eating, I guess, what would I say? This sounds very prudish, but properly, where your like napkin is in your lap and you're, if you are
Your elbows aren't on the table.
more careful than like spilling everywhere and all over the floor. And, sometimes there are people in my life that might plop their feet up as they're at the table. And I'm like, feet on the floor. Like the things that I know would have happened to me as a child, like had I had my feet up in my chair and not properly on the floor, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because we discuss it a lot in our household and model it, but it's a tough one to get through to some of our kids.
Yes.
And then other kids that it just sort of happened naturally. So I would love to hear your take on that.
Yes. So I think I'll go back to the why again. So I'm always, so for example, if there is, food being flung everywhere and then they're eating off the table or whatever it is, then we say, okay, so this is one thing that mommy wants you to try to focus on is keeping the food on the plate, because that's the best way that we can keep the table clean. And it makes it easier for mommy to clean up at the end of the night. Or, we don't eat off your, siblings' plates, because that's their plate and you have your own food. And we don't put elbows on the table, because then the table can rock and that can make your plate go off. So I always, again, try to explain why, not just keep your elbows off. Why, mom? So I think we hold our silverware because it makes it easier for us to eat. And one thing is, if they're doing things that are considered wrong, and a lot of people's, and I say that in quotes, wrong, because that's what some people think is wrong and right. But, it's not ever, in my mind with training, it's not saying that's right or wrong. It's saying that, that was a really good try. What would be really extra special is if you could just adjust it like this, and then that would make such a difference. So never saying, no, that's wrong. Say that was a really good try. If you see they're trying to hold a fork instead of grabbing food with their hands, that's such a good try. I'm really proud of you. Can mommy just help you to adjust, so make it a little bit easier for you by holding it like this? Amazing. And even if they're doing it wrong still, that the fact that they're trying, it's positive reinforcement. Pause. So if you hear them say something, you see them do something, I'm so proud of you. That was incredible. I love how you said thank you. And did you see how that made her feel? And when you used your fork instead of your fingers, did you see you didn't have any ketchup on your hands anymore? I was so proud of you. So that pause, and they're like, oh, it feels good to have your parents or your guardians or your family say, that you made them proud. So I think
I love that. And using the word easier, like this is what's going to make it easier for you, is such a more positive word than like it's better to do it like this. Saying it will be easier, so it's more easeful for you. Made me think of I had a really interesting experience, because at my dad's house, I'd go from my dad's to my mum's house. We lived in government housing with my mum. And then with my dad married a very successful businesswoman, and we had a big, beautiful house there. So I was going from these two different experiences in 1 week. And at my dad's house with my stepmom, she was this incredible cook, very graceful, beautiful woman. She very much expected you had to stay at the table, sitting down. You had to eat every last morsel that she's cooked. Elbows had to be off the table. I had to learn to use my knife and my fork. It was never formal. We didn't eat at the table or whatever. I would just like eat out of the bag, from the takeout place. Or my husband also, he grew up in a very challenging environment in America, in a very impoverished neighborhood. And he really they struggled to just have food to eat. So he was never taught how to use a knife and fork. Cut to this day, he does not use a knife. He uses a fork and a fork only to cut everything. He will use a fork and like use it to cut everything. And my children are like,
that's very American, by the way.
Yeah. Is that American?
Oh yeah, it's very American. Like obviously we'll have a knife to eat steak, but like Europeans,
You don't
like,
use a
it's
knife and fork to cut
no,
things up, like
no.
vegetables and stuff.
Not from
Oh
Kentucky,
my God. Here
not
I
in
was.
the South.
Here I was being like, oh my God, Mark was never taught to use a knife, but this is an American thing. So
I think
we must
so.
have
A
the
lot of
British. Okay, so it's very British to have a knife and a fork. We're a part of the Commonwealth in Australia here. We use knife and fork to cut everything up. So I have taught my children to use a knife and a fork, and my husband thinks it's hilarious. He's like, why use a knife and a fork when you can just use a fork? And I was like, well, you weren't taught to use a knife, guys. We're going to use our knife and fork. But I don't know why I care. I have been saying to the kids, it is easier to be able to stab a piece of food and use the knife to cut it and then put the piece of food in your mouth. But that has been an ongoing conversation in our household because we're always laughing at like the way that mom and dad do it. It's different.
Yeah.
So that I was like, oh, I'm going to use the word easier rather than like it's better.
Easier. And then you can decide with the fork and knife, you can decide how big the piece should be, and you can,
Yes.
and you also you can help the knife get the food on the fork, and I think it's easier.
I'm such a hybrid of my experience at my dad's house with my very beautiful, fancy stepmother who I'm very close with. And then my experience at my mum's house, like in my household, sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, I do want everyone to sit at the table to eat the food. Like everyone was sitting here and we're staying here until the food's done. But then I also am quite relaxed in that like the girls will run off playing and then I'll realize that one of them hasn't finished their food. I'm like, wait, guys, Prairie, you haven't finished your food. Come back to the table. So I'm such a split in the middle of my two childhood experiences, I realize. And it's quite funny. I'm like, I can feel my stepmother and then I can feel like my mother in me as well. I'm like this swinging pendulum between the both.
But I like that because at the end of the day, I think the important part is that they know how to act in various situations. And that means they're comfortable, they're at home. And I think the important part is that when you take them to a restaurant or you take them out, they understand the difference. I think that is probably the biggest part there, and they're at home, they're, but I think that's the real part that you probably really care about at the end of the day, I imagine.
And I think, I've got 5 kids. I have a noisy household. And one of the things when we're out at a restaurant is like, we want the privilege to be able to go to a restaurant. We love doing it. We have this one restaurant here in Byron Bay. They know us so well there. Like we go in every week, maybe twice a week, we go and eat. But it is quite a fancy restaurant. It's like a fancy vegan. It's a bit bougie, So we always sit in the outside tables, but the waiting staff, there's a beautiful woman who works there. Her name's Bobs. She always brings our kids coloring in because we know that like they'll sit down and color in and they'll wait for their food. And the other day it was like one of my kids hadn't napped. Two of my kids still sort of take naps, my older kids. Obviously the baby naps all the time. But I was like, okay, this is going to be an interesting dinner because I know that 2 of my kids are kind of tired and almost fell asleep on the way here. Like, how's this going to go down? And I could hear the noise getting louder and louder. And something that I was like, all right, how am I going to get through to the kids? Like, yes, we're outside. They're running around the gardens and stuff. So what I said was, hey, guys, see all these other people eating here. They've all come out to connect with their family and have a nice meal out. And maybe they don't get to come to this restaurant. Maybe this is the only time they've ever been to this restaurant. I know that it feels very familiar to us now, but all these people are trying to enjoy their dinner and hear each other speak and converse and share a drink together. So when our voices are so loud and we're making so much noise, and I know we know everyone here, like it's actually harder for them to enjoy their dinner and enjoy the conversation. So that was the approach that I took, and it actually really worked.
That's a really good one. Yes.
Rather than being like, guys, be quiet, you're being too noisy. Yes. I guess that's the why again.
That's the
why. Why does it matter?
Yes.
That we're being so noisy.
And I love that you take them out. I think it's so important to take children out to restaurants, travel with them. Don't be afraid to take them on airplanes. Don't be afraid of these things because then they don't grow up knowing that this is like a normal thing that they should be acting in a certain situation. And then when they're older, they're kind of like shocked, like, oh, I need to sit down and do this. So if you start, teaching them from a young age how to get on the train with you, how to, whatever it might be, then even if there are kind of moments where you blush because there's noise or whatever it is, people, it's life and people understand, but you're giving them the opportunity and the privilege to learn from a young age. So they don't even know any different, at some point. And my husband and I, we call that whenever we're at a restaurant or in a place and we have a situation like that, one of us will lean over and say, the wheels are coming off. And we're like, yep, the wheels are coming off. That's like our code for like, okay, we gotta wrap this up.
Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, the wheels are coming off.
The wheels are coming off.
The wheels are coming off. Yeah. Happens to all of us.
Well, will you tell us a little bit about the Mini Manners show and some of the like stories and the things that you share there? So I'm sorry, Ocean is very chatty today.
She has a lot to say.
I've muted 100 times so far because I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally was silent for the last 3 hours, and now she's like wanting to
She's
talk
like ready to participate in the conversation.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Well, okay. So Mini Manners is the kind of the goal of Mini Manners really is to have it be the go-to one-stop shop for families to teach their little ones manners. Because the crazy part is that the social and emotional intelligence that children learn, really, if you look at the graphs and the science behind manners, at 6, by 6, they have pretty much really developed their social and emotional intelligence by 6. So Mini Manners focuses from ages 2 to about 6, 7. And what we do is we teach the why. We teach the kindness. We teach the 6, 7. We teach the kindness. We teach through, fun interact. We have a YouTube channel, which is, we have these puppets. I actually have a puppet right here. I don't know if you can see this, guys. But this is Veggie Boo. This is Veggie Boo.
Oh, excuse me. Excuse me, Veggie Boo.
Fingers that actually move, and he can hold like forks and knives. And then we have all these characters. And then this is Moxie. So this is Moxie. Oh, she's here. Here's Moxie.
Obsessed.
And she's got her Mind Your Manners shirt.
She's girlfriend has lashes.
She does have lashes. And Valentina, my daughter, redid her hair last week.
Oh my gosh, she plaited it. Oh.
Yes. But so we use puppets. We use fun songs. We use, all these different ways of teaching manners to children that teach them the social and emotional intelligence, that teach them how to use manners day to day. And one of our episodes, for example, is called Space Bubbles. And Space Bubbles. What it is really is teaching about personal space, which is important for children. And Valentina, I overheard, I had a very proud mom moment where about 3 weeks ago, she was arguing with her little brother and he was in her space. And she said, Max, you were in my space bubble. And he said, I saw we. And so we're teaching, but through Space Bubbles and Mini Manners, we have them in a rocket ship and they go up to space and they, so there's animation. And so it's taught in a way that is fun. And they don't feel like they're learning.
For children.
Digestible, exactly right. So that's it's like, I just read, in an article that 85% of parents now, like when we were growing up, you probably were sat in front of a TV and watched Sesame Street or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But now this generation, 85% of parents use YouTube as learning and educational or even an entertainment tool. So what are your children looking at? And sometimes that's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Even if it's YouTube Kids, it's mindless playing. They're watching for a lot of children, watching other children play, which is interesting to children, but it's not developing in any way.
What is that? I'm like,
they have
I don't know. That's like that's a craze and it's a weird.
I was like, it's interesting.
That's happening.
Just play with your own toys like that,
right? They're watching other kids play.
Why you? I don't understand that.
If we're going to kind of put children in front of a screen, if we are going to, I think screen time is super important. Even as somebody who has a YouTube channel, I can't stress how much moderating that time is, and the science and the psychologists that we speak to internally, mini manners, it's so important to have that limited. And so if there is a limited time, it better be good time.
Yeah.
Is there a tool? Because we have like really cracked down on like everything that we allow them to look at, and they're only allowed it on the weekends, right? Then there's no screens in front of them, including TV during the week. But is there a tool to like only educational videos? Is there something that filters that? Because when I've like walked past my girls and they have their time on YouTube Kids and they're watching like someone play with a new doll that's been opened, I'm like, why? What is fascinating about this? Do you know if there is a way to filter only educational? Or maybe there's an app or something that would do it for you.
There must be. And if you find out, please let me know. I don't know of one. I feel like that would be that would be amazing.
No, I was going to say that I don't think there's a way to really change that. Because even for school, there's been links, because they'll do a lot of like, our old school, it was Spanish. And so they would even have like YouTube Spanish songs that they would pull up during school for like to teach the kids, and they'd be like, this is the video. And they would send the link home. And so I would watch the link and then I would be like, wow, it's so easy to like now go to something else or click on something else. I mean, it's the way that the algorithm is sort of set up, is that like, oh, you like this information? Let me give you more of this information. So maybe you'll get more like, stuff geared towards children or manners or something, but it won't necessarily be what it is that you're, like that you could walk away and cook dinner and be like, wait a minute, wait, what was that? What are you listening to? You know what I mean? That's really tough.
I know. I'm excited to show my kids your channel.
Yeah.
And watch it with them and talk about it, because then you can engage with your children as they're watching.
Exactly.
Like, wow. And what did you think that meant? And then they can talk about it. So my question for you is, in my family, I have a couple of kids who are more, I don't know, I guess like they really organically engage with adults and really want to talk to them and connect. And then I have a couple I have a couple who are a little more shy, and I notice it because at home they're so loud and wild. And then when an adult comes in and really wants to engage in like a proper full conversation with a kid, which a lot of my friends do, and a lot of people, I mean, usually they're quite open with friends of mine, but acquaintances, like let's say other parents of school children in the schoolyard, I've noticed that uncharacteristically, like both of these children of mine will suddenly like go internal and kind of clam up around adults. And then I'll notice that the other sibling will like step in for them and start like talking and chattering away. And can you talk about that and how it's important for us not to force them? Because I felt in those moments like, why are they being like this? Like, just start talking. Like, what are they afraid of? And it's hard as a parent to be like, wait, why is this happening to my child who's like generally quite outgoing?
So I think I don't recommend forcing it. I think that kind of does a disservice, and you can see their discomfort. You feel it for them. But I think what's important here is we call this confidence in numbers. So just like if you are feeling a little shy, suddenly with your best friend or someone you trust, you suddenly just feel a bit more confident, right? That's just part of human nature. So as a parent, if you see this and there's an adult that's coming up and you know that, Mr. Smith is about to come up and want to engage with a very shy child, confidence in numbers. So what I would recommend is standing right next, physically close to the child so they feel your presence, and help them and talk and use the words we. This morning, so if Mr. Smith says, so, Sarah, what did you do this morning? And Sarah clams up, then it's your job to say, what did we do? Well, let's see. Can you think of anything? And give Sarah the opportunity to talk. And maybe Sarah can't talk or doesn't feel comfortable. And say, well, let's see. We did, and you're saying we, so you're helping. You're showing by example how you have a conversation, and eventually they will get there. But I think it's showing them through that example, and then asking them, giving them that kind of the jumping board, the diving board. And if they still can't, then helping them. Confidence in numbers. Yeah. And one question to ask too is ask yourself, why do they feel that way in that situation? It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel shy. It's okay to not feel, comfortable. And just to understand that and not force it. The more you force it, the more you see the discomfort. And I think you never want to put them out of their comfort zone in a place where they don't feel good. And I think sometimes I remember that feeling of being sent to talk to all the people in my grandparents' neighborhood and being forced to go up and feeling shy and like feeling like a pinch, like, come on, talk. And I don't think it helps. I think when children are ready, they'll be, and I think one thing you can do is practice at home too, is say, okay, so when we see somebody today, we might see some adults. What are some ways that we can make that adult feel that we're happy to see them? When we see grandma and her friends, and then talk about it ahead of time. So there's a plan. And maybe when they get in the moment, maybe they're ready. Maybe they feel more prepared, or maybe they clam up, and that's okay too. But that's when confidence in numbers, being physically close to them, sometimes just a hand on the shoulder and a nice comfort and warm, support is what they need. So it's not pushing in and saying, go talk, come on. But I think preparation helps too.
And I do notice, I did notice the other day, at school drop off, one of my kids was exhausted after a lot of activity, 3 or 4 days worth of crazy amounts of activity. And they just seemed a bit off, not fully themselves. And then that's when I really noticed, oh wow, they found it very hard to look this person in the eye and hold a conversation. And it was an adult, and it's someone that they've maybe met once or twice before, but they're not a complete stranger. And I remember being like, oh, that was funny, because it just didn't really seem like them. And then there was another time that my other child, my female child in the family, who just clammed up and said nothing, just went when someone asked them a question. And then the other sibling was like, jumped in to answer the question. It does also depend on the day and the energy and how they're feeling. And then that same child will be so bubbly and open and brrr. So that's another interesting thing, is to not label them as, oh, that's the shy one. It's those couple of children have the tendency, if not all the right things are in place, if they're feeling hungry, if they, the very typical things that can change the mood of a child, which having toddlers, I've had many toddlers, but are they well fed? Have they slept recently? Yeah, exactly. Has there been anything that has changed the mood or the tone? Has there been a disagreement or an argument? I've my children have sensitivities to that stuff. I'm just meeting them where they're at as well. Maybe one day this isn't the right day to bring them to an adult situation where grandma's going to expect them to be talking to all of their friends and being open. I think as a parent, that's on us to all right, how emotionally regulated are they today? And does it make sense to bring them along to this thing where they're going to be in an environment that's going to make them feel shy?
I think you're exactly right. And there's so many times where you feel earlier we were talking about, it's it feels self-reflective of us, but sometimes that's why we force things, is because we think it's going to look rude that we are, but I think we have to kind of brush that off and forget about that sometimes, and think more about how they might be feeling in that moment. I love that.
I have a backup here. I have backup.
I'm not backup. I'm your husband.
You're gonna love this.
It's my job.
You're going to love this episode so much. She's the creator of Mini Manners, talking about teaching manners to kids.
Oh, can you come teach, not naming names, one of our children who eats like a cave bear?
He said one of our children eats like a cave bear.
Okay, bear.
We talk about
can
cave bear,
help.
you're saying, but we talk about the difference between manners and morals. Look at this baby.
Yes.
I was just saying this about my couple of rogue children as well. I've got a couple of rogue children. I've got a couple of wilds as well. And Sarah's got a wild in there. We do.
Yeah, we've got some cave bears that need some help.
That's right.
I love cave bears. Cave bears are my favorite because then they're so excited to learn in these little ways that we have, and before you know it, they're going to be so proud to show you. You're in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
You're in LA?
Santa Barbara.
Yeah. Santa Barbara. So the next time I'm in town, which I'm over there quite often, I will email you all, and if you are open to it, I will come and do a little session and show you some techniques in person that you'll literally see instant change with.
Oh my goodness,
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I don't even know what
Next time she's in town, she's going to come by and give us a couple of things to do that, especially this one, because this one's just a disaster.
Wow, she's very today.
So sweet.
At the beginning of this, I was like, my husband is going to love this episode.
I do. Yeah,
So
it's a longer conversation, but I think it's
Okay.
It's a wonderful way to show respect to the people that you're.
Yeah, it's exactly what we're talking about,
Yes.
and
Okay.
it's all based in kindness and
Yes.
showing empathy, and yeah.
Three-year-old.
Yes.
A three-nager. With a meltdown, because I'm sure so many people are listening to this and they've got kids that are like doing huge tanties. It's very obvious in my family who this might possibly be, but there is someone who daily, I would say recently, since they, let's just call her out here because no one's going to think it's my 6-year-old. This is my 4-year-old I'm talking about.
Okay.
I would say since she turned 4, daily the feelings have been very big. And Sarah's talked about children in her family who have those really big feelings. And it feels like now I'm like, is it because there's a lot of attention goes on them during the big feelings? Like you sit and you try and regulate and you hold and you comfort. And I see how hard that is. I know you're really missing that. You've lost your sticker book. That must feel really sad. I'm sure it's in the car somewhere. Every day we have been navigating some sort of big feelings here. How do you approach the big feelings? Because it would be easier in life to not have such big feelings and be easier for that child to get the thing that they're trying to get. Let's take the sticker book situation.
Right.
You know, there was a lost sticker book. It got lost, by the way, just in the car. It was just somewhere in the car. The feelings were so big and felt very irrational to mummy. And then the sticker book was found very quickly, probably within 15 minutes. We found the sticker book. Sticker book was back in hand, but it was still like these big feelings about like the fact that it even went missing in the first place. So how do you navigate that in a way that doesn't bring shame? Because it would be easier for them to be able to not, you know, and I know it's very hard to emotionally regulate at that age. It would be easier to not have such a big reaction. How do you word that to your 3-year-old?
Yeah. I think it depends on where we are, firstly.
Okay.
Public. Just say
in
public.
Yep. If we're in public, then what I would say is I think what's important is in this moment, if you kneel down, so there's signs that say getting down on their same level is crucial. So
Yes,
coming down to
that's
their
right.
level and saying and using a tone that they can mirror and saying, so if they're yelling and you yell, then they're going to yell. So making
That's
your
right.
tone, right? And saying, you know, Max, I know we lost the sticker book. We're going to find it. Mommy will help you find it. But right now, what I need you to do is look around and see all these people around us. They're having a nice day. And we want to keep them having a nice day, right? Yeah? Wouldn't that feel nice to have them enjoy their day too? Yes. Okay. Mommy will help you find your sticker book. But the one thing I'm going to ask for you is for the next couple minutes, we're going to go in here and you're going to come to the bank. And then I'm going to help you find your sticker book. So you're giving them a solution. You can't raise your voice no matter how much you want to, because then they'll copy you.
Yeah.
And I think you're giving them, it's hard. It's really, really hard in those moments. It's really hard. But I think in this moment, that's what you do. So you give an end result. It's coming, but to get there, I need this from you. And I think that's the guardrail parenting, is giving them guidelines and saying, I'm going to get this for you. I'm going to help you find this. We're going to look for this. But until then, I need you to do this. And saying, could you do that for me? Yes. That would make mommy so proud right now if you could help me, and then I'll help you. So it's like, okay, we can do this. We're a team. And it's really hard. It takes every inner strength sometimes not to explode.
Be reactionary. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah. I feel like I go, and maybe this is worse, Mark will be reactionary with a louder voice. I just go really quiet. I just go I'm like
deflated, like a deflated balloon.
I'm like deflated. I'm just like, oh God. Because it hasn't been happening in public for us. Like, in fact, I could probably count the times from my 5 children that we've had any like massive blow ups like outside of the house. But it has been happening usually like in the morning as we're just about to kind of get going. Yes. And that's when it's been happening. So it's usually within the house and never out. And it's been like since she turned 4, Mark chalks it up to like, he's like, when the girls hit 4 hormonally, and maybe it is something hormonally, we went through this probably a little bit less with Poet. Like, her personality is a little bit more like, she really wants to do right by people all the time. That's her personality. She's a real perfectionist, like everything. She loves to like, you know, make her bed and make sure the rooms, that's sort of more her personality. Then my wildling, back to nature girl is Prairie. And she's the one that's like, she's a Leo, she's fire. And that girl will go big. Go big or go home.
Go big or go home.
And I'm so soft and gentle with her. I really like have that. I know it's really hard. I hear you. You miss Daddy. He just got back. And now you've woken up and he's taken Poet to her dance class and you're wondering where Daddy is. He is coming back. I hear you. Those are big, big feelings. All of that sort of stuff. But they'll continue on. And I don't know if it's like, she's enjoying the closeness of like just the two of us, because I also have a new baby. And it's maybe an intention thing. But it has been interesting. And then some days like we'll go without it. We'll go without the big feelings. And I was like, did you feel today? Like, was that easier for you to not have all those big emotions and those big moments and that anger? Did today feel easier for you? And she'll be like, yeah. But then the next day it'll be like,
of course, yeah.
So, do you know one thing you can do at home is you can use this technique. So if you're at home and there's a temper tantrum and it's flying hands and rolling or whatever it is in this moment, you can say, when you are done, when you're done there, you're welcome to join us in the other room. But, you're welcome. So you're never saying, go to your room or anything like that. You're saying, I would love for you to come join us, but why don't you take a few moments? And then when you're ready, you can come join us in the other room. So it's almost like you're not saying, you're not putting them down in a way, but you're saying, I would love for you to come back to the dining table, but I think you can take a few moments here, and when you're ready, we'll be in there, or when you're ready, and then walk away and give them that space. And I just think that is that's something that I do as well, that I think really works, in saying, take your time. And when you're ready, you're not saying, no, you can't have this. No, you can't come. You can come as soon as
We want
take
you
your
to
deep
come.
breaths. We want you to be here as soon as you're ready. As soon as you can take some calm, deep breaths, come join us. Okay, I love you. And then
I really love that invitation.
I liked your dialogue that you used earlier too, when you were talking about how you can have this feeling or you can have this emotion, but like, I can't let you, you can't speak to this person this way, or, that I in some versions, we have that as well, where it's like, I get it. Like, you're really upset and I see that you're really upset. But you can't speak to your sister like that. It's not kind. Yeah. Like, what? That's not a language in which we use. Like, that's not, that sort of way of acknowledging where that person's at, but also there's a boundary. And I was reading on your Instagram, you have all these amazing, under Mini Manners, you have all these amazing little slides where you talk, there's like different steps to things. And you talk about manners and boundaries. And before we close out here, I just wanted to quickly touch on that, because I think, when there was a version of us when we were kids, and this version is me, but, there was expectations to be a certain way with people, where you had to be like always kind and always respectful, but there were some adults that didn't make me feel comfortable. And so, I always had to be kind and respectful to adults, but there's also boundaries in that as well. Like, understanding, like, you don't have to force your child to, like, obviously now in this day and age, we don't force our kids to like kiss or hug anyone, right? It's like a high five or a handshake or things like that. So that's my point. So there's this idea of where it's rooted in, which I love how you speak about that, because we talk about that as well. It's rooted in this like kind, empathetic, human way. But also there are boundaries. And so would love to hear a little bit about that before we close out.
Yeah. I think that just like we talk about explaining the why behind why we, practice manners, why are they feeling that way? And, maybe they don't feel safe with that adult. Maybe they don't feel right. They've got feelings that are just as important as any other, adult on the planet. And why are they feeling that way? Maybe they're, so I think we need to respect that as well. And I think, just like I say, good manners is about kindness and respect for all living things and everyone out around us. It's also respect for ourselves.
That's right.
And if we don't feel good, and if we don't feel, then we should be able to be confident enough, or learn to be confident to speak up and to tell our parents that. So after, in private, I think it's a big thing about no shaming. I think that's really important to not ever in front of another adult say, now go say hi. Well, why? That's rude not to say hi.
Oh, God.
That's a shaming, right?
Shaming,
So
awful.
Instead, later on in a private place, and again, that technique coming down eye to eye, and saying, can you tell me when you met Mrs. or Mr. or whoever, how are you feeling in that moment? And letting them tell you and not jumping to conclusion, because they have boundaries and we need to respect their whys as well.
That's right.
And that whole thing about coming down, the science behind that. Think about when you go into a doctor's office. Why does the doctor come down and sit on the little wheelie, the little wheelie stool and come up eye to eye? It's to connect with you. It's connectivity. And that's why it's the science behind coming eye to eye. People feel connected, and it's hard for children when we're standing over them, talking down to them.
That's
so
right.
You can have some amazing conversations when you come to eye, and listening and making sure if you ask a question, give them the chance to respond and really focus on what they're saying. How did that make you? Tell me, how did that make you feel? I don't know, Mommy. It made me feel this way. I don't know why. Tell me more. Why do you think that might be? Just asking the questions and then really listening.
I love that. And I so appreciate that. And I'm so glad I asked and you explained it, because I was looking on your, on some of your slides, and I was like, oh, that makes me think of that. Cause I've had an experience with one of my kids before where I would notice them being very uncomfortable in a situation with a certain adult. And so later, as we were like, driving and the kids in the back, behind me, and I'm like, that was an interesting conversation that I had with so and so. I'm wondering, like, how did you feel when we were there? And we were talking to so and so, and then my child was like, that person gives me like a thumbs down feeling. And I'm like, yeah, it's funny. I got a thumbs down feeling from that person too. I was feeling weird. I always talk about energy with my kids. And so I was like, they had really different energy. And my son, he's big into like reading energy and stuff. Like he'll just tell me like, oh, that, that person had weird energy. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I agree. But my littlest one time was like, that guy that we passed on the beach, he had really weird energy. And I'm like, yeah,
I
he did
remember
have weird. You remember that?
Yeah.
And he was like a guy that makes me feel uncomfortable and ended up being someone who was a person who should make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. It's so interesting. Like we think about them as little kids, and like it's so important to understand that they have all these feelings too, and we have to respect that
and follow their intuition.
That's actually social and emotional intelligence. They're showing you right there. So we can't squash that, because the things that sometimes, and my mom always says this, that the things that are the hardest to raise when children are little sometimes end up being their greatest qualities.
Yes.
So that if they have that intelligence and that feeling and that sensitivity, then nurturing it instead of squashing it. And I think that is how we raise kind, confident kids.
So true.
100%.
Thank you so
You're
much.
amazing.
You're
Thank
amazing.
Thank you.
I feel like there's been so many gems from this. I'm like, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So good.
You.
Well, can you tell everyone where we can find you?
Yes. So my website is Beaumont Etiquette. And that you can also go to, and then minimanners.com. So those are the two websites: Beaumont Etiquette for adults and children's, and then Mini Manners just for the little ones.
Okay.
Amazing. And you guys can find her on social as well, at
Mini Manners Myka Meier. Yes, we have MykaMeier.com. Or sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
At Myka Meier.
That was my Instagram handle. At Myka Meier and at Mini Manners Show.
Yes.
Is it Mini Manners Show?
Awesome. It is. Hold on. I need to make sure. It is. It's Mini Manners Show.
Mini Manners Show.
Yeah.
You're juggling,
so many time zones.
No, I know.
My goodness.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. We so appreciate it. This is such a wonderful topic. And you guys have been listening to the Mother Days. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, Myka. Bye, Daisy.
Thank you so much. Thank you.